And this is the perfect segue, really, to our next segment, which is how the media has behaved with regards to Andrew Cuomo. We cannot let these people off the hook.
That's right.
Whenever it was convenient, they held up this man who is responsible. Just so you all know, New York has the second most amount of COVID deaths in the entire country, only behind New Jersey, both of whom had egregious nursing home orders. So there are a lot of deaths on the hands of the policy. Now, I've even said, if he had come out and said, look, it was the early days of the pandemic. We didn't know.
We didn't know.
I didn't know that this was going to be rampant through nursing homes, and all this. I'm sorry. Oh, then that's what a real leader does. But he hasn't done that. He covered it up. He wrote a book. But during that entire period, just because he appeared strong and he was in the vein of orthodoxy, the media held him up like he was a hero with regards to Trump. We have a mashup. I've played it previously, but it is always worth remembering how these people treated this man at the height of his power and when it mattered, when they really could have exposed what he was doing. Let's take a listen to that.
Governor Cuomo out there day after day after day, everything Trump isn't, honest, direct, brave.
Real leadership of the kind the President of the United States should have provided.
Governor Cuomo is clearly living in a totally different reality, the actual one, than the President of the United States.
Governor Cuomo has become a national leader.
For a lot of people, Andrew Cuomo has become the leader of the Democratic Party.
He is conveying incredible strength.
You spoke to National Guard troops today in a stirring speech that, if I wasn't listening carefully, I thought you were sending soldiers off to war.
This has been a remarkable show of leadership by Governor Cuomo in recent days. He's providing hope, but not false hope.
That goes on for 2 more minutes. I'm going to spare you. Okay?
Well, let me add to that mix. Yeah. Drew Holden on Twitter compiled the quintessential thread of bad Cuomo takes. Mm-hmm. Let me just give you 2 headlines from BuzzFeed News. One is, take this poll and settle the debate. Who's the hottest Cuomo brother? Ugh. Here's another one. Andrew Cuomo and Chris Cuomo can't stop cracking jokes about each other on live TV, and it's glorious.
It's glorious indeed, yeah. It's glorious in what it represents to us about how these people conduct themselves. And look, we don't have to play you again the infamous clip in which Chris Cuomo is joking with his brother Andrew Cuomo on CNN's air about the size of his nose and the multiple interviews that he conducted at the height of the pandemic, in which he never once pressed his brother about the nursing home. And then the moment that all of this becomes scandalous, Cuomo disappears from Chris Cuomo's CNN Tonight. Chris Cuomo then does a segment on his show saying, I know what's happening with my brother. Obviously, CNN is going to cover it, but I am not. But he didn't even have the gall after the exposure of this report to even address it, to even tell CNN viewers on his highest rated show, and look, the ratings still aren't that great. It's a low bar, but he is still the highest rated show on CNN. He has the most amount of eyeballs. He did not do the due diligence to his viewers to say, at the very least, acknowledge what was happening. Here's how he opened the show after the top story of the day was the conduct of his brother and those revelations. Take a look.
Thanks for the coverage. I'm Chris Cuomo. Welcome to Primetime. We're focused on COVID here, especially until we get the Delta variant.
Yep, we're focused on COVID here. And then attacked Governor Ron DeSantis. You can't even make it up. And just so you know, put the media one up there on the screen. He did not address it for the entire part of the show. The show before Chris Cuomo, the show after Chris Cuomo, both of them led their segments on Andrew Cuomo. But once again, he is the person who has the highest rated show on all of CNN and is ignoring and gaslighting his own audience about his role within all of this. And one of the things we learned, Krystal, from the report is that he himself was intimately involved in helping Cuomo's crisis communications when that was happening.
Yes, that's exactly right. There were, in an appendix, there was an email that CNN primetime host Chris Cuomo appeared to draft on behalf of his brother to try to get out in front of these sexual harassment and assault allegations when they first came out. So we already knew that Chris Cuomo had been involved in strategy calls, but we did not know how much and how often.
Yeah.
So this report contains new details about these were regular. This was not some one-off, not that any of us ever thought that was really the case anyway. This was not some one-off strategy call. He was involved routinely in regular political strategy calls with his brother, with his brother's aides, with the lawyers, all of this, even going so far as to draft his brother's first initial response to these harassment and assault allegations. And CNN and he himself say nothing about
Zero.
that?
They have no words.
Nothing?
I believe we have the email, actually. Put that up there.
Yeah, we can throw that up on the screen. Yeah, there it is there. So you can see that this is from Chris Cuomo to the whole team, it looks like, of suggestion of how his language, questions have been raised about some of my past interactions with people in the office, blah, 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 blah. And it's a very similar line to what he's still taking of like, you know, is this just how I am? I do this, I'm sorry if anyone was offended type of line here. I joked around on Twitter, like, I can't wait for Chris Cuomo to not cover any of this on his show tonight.
I didn't think it would be a joke.
I actually thought that he would have to say something, or that maybe they'd pull him for the night or something. He's directly implicated, not only in this, but he also, again, was receiving the VIP treatment. He is directly implicated in all of this. It was certainly one of, if not the biggest story of the day. John Berman, who he handed off to Chris Cuomo, he led his show with it. He put it in the prime position, uncomfortable, in his show, and then hands off to Chris Cuomo, who says not one word. How do you have any credibility? Not just Chris Cuomo, but CNN? CNN, how do you have any credibility about your journalistic integrity when you're just completely silent on this whole thing? It's so disgraceful.
Look, when you're a news host, you actually do have a responsibility. I think whenever we cover politicians, we're all, if one of them is a friend, like, for example, I think we talked about J.D. Vance. I was like, look, J.D. Vance is a friend of mine. I'm gonna be totally upfront with all of you.
Nina, earlier this week, I was like, I am biased. Nina is my friend.
Yeah, exactly. Like, this is how it works, right? Like, could I objectively cover J.D. Vance? Probably not. And anything I say, you should know that I'm like, look, personal friend of mine who I've known for a long time. Obviously, I'm rooting for somebody who I know on a personal level. So you guys should know that. And yet, Chris Cuomo doesn't have the gall to go to his audience. And once again, to even take Chris Cuomo out of it, if you're Jeff Zucker, if you're the president of CNN, and take it even higher, if you're the CEO of Time Warner, how can you possibly, with a straight face, tell your investors that you are running the best news organization on the planet? You cannot. If Chris Cuomo doesn't have a responsibility to his viewers, then Jeff Zucker has a responsibility to the network which he shepherds to say that, look, the guy's his brother, and be like, listen, Chris, I'm putting something in the teleprompter and you're gonna read it or you're fired and you're gonna get your ass out on the street. Or you know what? If you wanna take the week off, go for it. But we are covering it in your time slot, whether you like it or not. That's how things should be. But they wanna put this under the rug. And honestly, they're probably gonna get away with it. Nobody in the mainstream media, the New York Times tweets about it. Washington Post, they had a story about it in the past. Cuomo survived, let's be honest. He signed a multi-million-dollar contract in the middle of COVID. He is the anchor to their entire network. And so they've decided the conflict of interest is enough. But I think what's worse is they know the audience won't punish them for that. I think that's actually the worst part, in my opinion, is that they know the audience is so slavish and will cover up or is okay with the cover up as long as it's a Democrat, that they're not going to do anything about it. And that tells you a lot about the state of where we're at right now.
I saw a lot of people on Twitter who were like, it's his brother. I understand. It's like, what? I mean, listen, he's not the first person to have this type of like conflict in terms of having a personal relationship with somebody they're supposed to be covering as a journalist. There are ways that you handle this. He did the polar opposite. So now his whole line is, I'm not going to cover my brother at all because obviously I can't cover him because I'd be biased. Well, you can't do that now that the news is bad. But then you were happy to have him on the show and joke around with him and lob him softball questions when the news was good and when it was the media climate around him was favorable. Like, you can't have it both ways. You either have to cover him good or bad, sit out altogether and let someone who has integrity cover him, or you keep your hands off altogether from the beginning. You don't get to have it both ways. And so that's what's really disgraceful here. And the fact, again, this is supposed to be a journalist, okay? And it is different. Like, Saagar and I are upfront about what our ideology is, what our worldview is, who we're cheering for. I mean, we're really upfront about all of that stuff. We don't try to pretend like we're some down the middle, neutral, no opinion journalist. Honestly, nobody is. But with this guy, this is how he paints himself. He paints himself as the just calling balls and strikes here, holding power to account no matter who it is, et cetera, et cetera. And then you see behind the scenes, he's engaging in political strategy calls with one of the more powerful people in the country, with one of the most prominent people in the country during the coronavirus pandemic, and he's routinely engaging in strategy calls. Not again some one-off, oh, my brother called me and we're having dinner and I happened to say this. No. On a regular, scheduled basis. It's just completely counter to the way that he wants to paint himself and the way that CNN has billed him and portrayed him. And like you said, the sad thing is the audience probably doesn't care.
Yeah, no, I really don't think they do. It's just egregious.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it. You get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.